Hi, welcome back to My Smart Learning. This is a lesson for my Year 12s on biodiversity, genetic diversity and biodiversity, which we're looking at over this week and next week. So you have 3 lessons this week. Miss Martin has been setting work on Show My Homework as well, giving you the other resources on diversity, biodiversity and genetic diversity. But I was going to go through the key concepts on these video lessons. If you have any questions, like Bianca did, and shout out for Bianca, you can ask me questions via either the Show My Homework app, or you can just go straight to the YouTube, my Smart Learning YouTube channel, which you're watching right now, obviously, and write a comment on there. I do check the comments, so I will reply if you've got any questions. Can you just make sure that you're using your Caboodle textbooks, or the online ones, to make sure you're going through your summary questions and your end of chapter exam style questions, just so that you're up to date. So can you just make sure your folders are pretty much up to date as well, because you will be at school at some point this year, hopefully, and we will be going through those. So it's for Year 12, A-level biology. So if you're doing GCSEs, physics or chemistry or whatever you, then this isn't for you. This is just for the A-level biology students looking at diversity. Now, if you are doing GCSE biology, it's actually useful for you as well, because you do go through this topic. It is a lot of this today is actually very, very similar, or if not identical, to the stuff that you do at GCSE science and biology. So it's useful for those students as well that are doing GCSEs. So what we're looking at then, so genetic diversity and adaptation. The objective today then, how does genetic diversity enable natural selection? So this is all about Darwin's theory of evolution. But before we get going, we can't forget our recall quiz, our high five. Make sure you get all 5 correct. You get a virtual high five from me. So number 1, last thing we looked at was translocation, and we looked at transpiration as well. But where is sugar made in a plant? Now it's obvious, but I'm looking for those 2 key phrases: where sugar is made, and question 2, where is the sugar used or stored? So we got a phrase for where the glucose and sucrose is being made in the plant, and we've got a phrase for where the sucrose, sugar, the glucose is being used or stored. What is known as the process of moving sugar around the plant? I've sort of given you the answer for that already. And number 4, where does sugar flow through? Which part of the plant does the sugar flow through? And which cells or structures do you find in that part 4 question? So press pause, have a go at those questions, just check your answers, and we'll go through the answers now. Right, so where is sugar made? What is the... Obviously sugar is made in the leaves, okay, it's the main factory, but that's not the answer I was looking for. I was looking for a source. So a source is part of the plant where the sucrose is being made. And question 2, where it's being used or stored is known as the sink. So source, question 2 is sink. 3, the process of moving sugar around is known as translocation. So we use the mass flow theory for that. The translocation, mass flow theory, there's translocation. And number 4, where does sugar flow through? Well, it flows through the phloem, not the xylem, but the phloem. And which cells or structures do you find there? Well, you've got in the phloem, you've got the sieve tube element. Remember the sieve tube element? And within them, you've got the sieve plates, the little bits where they've got little holes, those little plates. And then on the side of them, we have the companion cells. Okay, so then obviously parallel to that, you've got the, or adjacent to it, sorry, you've got the xylem vessels too. But that question, you got the sieve tube element, sieve plates, and the companion cells. So if you got all 5 correct, fantastico, high five from me. Virtual one obviously, because we can't touch hands or else the coronavirus will spread. So what do I need to know then in particular? You need to know, this is lesson 9 point, I think it's 9.3 or 4 or something. Miss has already gone through the meiosis section, so this is straight after the meiosis section. This is looking at biodiversity and genetic diversity. Why are organisms different? What factors influence genetic diversity? How does reproductive success affect allelic frequency within a gene pool? And how does genetic diversity enable natural selection? So that's the the questions, well, it's basically your objectives of this particular lesson. So, what do I know? I was supposed to be making those come out one by one. That's gone a bit wrong. Anyway, so diversity, 1.8 million known species on the planet. 1.8 million that we know of. However, we don't know, there's millions out there that we don't know. And scientists' best estimate, a guess pretty much, is that we've got somewhere between 5 and 100 million unknown species. Which means you could be walking around the jungle, in the Amazon jungle or somewhere, wandering around, but you're not allowed to go out right now because we're on lockdown, so you should be at home studying, obviously. But if you were wandering around outside, you could stumble across something that nobody's ever discovered before, completely new, and you can name it after yourself. Okay, so there's a thought. What would you name the animal? I'll come back to you on that one. I'm trying to think of something. So now variation. So, well, first of all, I want to learn the word species. What is a species? By definition, what is a species? Now, we're going to do this next week. We're going to look at biodiversity in more detail, but the definition of a species is a group of organisms that have similar features, but ultimately they can reproduce living and fertile offspring. Okay, so that's the definition of a species. Variation then, what is variation? Well, variation is the word variety. It just means there's lots of differences amongst living things. And why do we have those differences? Well, if you think back to sort of year 7 and 8 and 9 work, you can remember that, well, it could be an environmental factor. For instance, if you fell over and cut yourself, you can end up with a scar on your knee or something. So that's purely an environmental thing that makes us different. Or it could be a genetic factor, for instance, the colour of your iris. Okay, will be from your parents or your blood group, the genes be passed down from your parents. Or it could be a little combination of both. Okay. Walking, you know, your body mass structure should be roughly particularly similar to your parents. However, if you're leaving school every day and taking a detour via an establishment, I'm just trying to think, I was going to say Dixie's, but there are other establishments available, and you're having a munch on the way home, your painless munch on the way home, you may not end up looking like your parents. So, what makes us and other species similar but so different? Same but different. Why? Because it's to do with our genes. Now, this is the thing you can't get confused between, right? Genetic diversity, so genes differences, the definition, you must learn this definition. The genetic diversity is this: it's the total number of different alleles in a population. Different alleles. Now, what's the difference between this word gene and allele? You can't get confused between these two. A gene is a sequence of DNA that codes for a polypeptide. Okay, so a gene is a specific section of DNA that codes for a polypeptide, and each species have all the same genes. We've all got the same genes because we've got a gene for a particular blood group. We've got a gene for, I don't know, particular, you know, like rolling tongue or not rolling tongue, okay, or attached earlobes or not attached earlobes. You've got genes for that. So the thing is, we've all got the same genes. We've got the gene for eye colour. However, we don't all have the same alleles. So the word allele, the allele is just a different version of that particular gene. So we've all got the eye coloured gene, but we'll have different versions of that gene depending on our phenotype. So I've got brown eyes, so I'll have the brown eye gene. So, however, I've got the eye color gene, I've got the eye color gene, but I can have the brown eye allele because that's my version. But you might have blue eyes, so you'll have the blue eye allele because you've got that version of that particular gene. So in a species, each species has all the same genes, but a combination of different alleles. Okay, so for instance, my blood group might be O, so I've got that particular gene switched off. For instance, I don't have that particular protein, but somebody else might have blood group A. So we've got blood group genes. We've all got blood group genes. All human species have. However, we might have different blood groups. Therefore, we've got the different allele. You might have the blood group A allele or blood group B allele, or you might have both, which would be AB allele, or it might be switched off so you don't have it. So that's the definitions you need to know about what diversity and what genetic diversity is. So genetic diversity, if you imagine a population, let's just say all humans, the genetic diversity then is all of the different alleles within that population. We call that the gene pool. The gene pool, which I haven't really put on that screen, but it'll be on another lesson. The gene pool is all of the different alleles, okay, of our genes in that population. And that's why we look so different. It's because of the combination of different alleles. However, we may look similar to other organisms. Okay, so natural selection then. Natural selection, how does it happen? So Darwin's theory of evolution, remember what evolution is? Evolution is the slow and gradual change of organisms over a prolonged period of time. Now for some organisms it can happen over a very short period of time. It can happen quite quickly if they're very simple organisms like bacteria. However, more complex organisms, mutations are happening randomly at any given time, but when they become an advantage to that organism over time, it usually takes a long time for it to progressively get passed down from generation to generation. Now it's not in my somatic cells that happen, it has to happen in the gametes. So it needs to happen in the sperm or the eggs for it to be passed down from one generation to the next generation. So natural selection, so this is GCSE standard work, but it's slightly going to slightly more higher depth. But generally speaking, if GCSE students are watching this, this is actually very useful for you because you need to know this too. So natural selection then. Usually a 6-mark question at GCSE, it could be a 4-mark question at A level, but you need to go through these phases, these steps. These steps are really important because you need to know this as a sequential story. So Charles Darwin, because there are other people around at the time coming up with the idea of evolution, that organisms change over time, because they say, yeah, organisms have changed over thousands of years. However, who came up with the best explanation? And it's Darwin's theory of evolution, that, or the natural selection is the explanation behind this, is the one that we tend to go with and stick with, and that's the one that we believe, and that's why it was in the back of the old £10 notes. So how does it all work? So every population, in every population of organisms, there is genetic diversity. That genetic diversity enables this natural selection to occur. Right, so how does this happen? Now, based on that, reproductive success and allele frequency will happen, okay? So reproductive success is they get a chance to mate. They mate and they pass on those genes to the next generation. But then the allelic frequency, the frequency of those alleles in that gene pool can either increase, stay the same, or decrease. Now obviously if it increases, then that particular feature will become more prominent within that population. So how does it all start then? It starts from this point here. There's variation in a population. So in that gene pool, there is variation. It's already there. There's differences amongst us in this population. Some of us are faster, some of us are slower. Talking about speed, not how quick thinking you are, but obviously there's also that. But you know, some of us are taller, some of us are shorter, and so on and so on. We're all different, okay? A lot of our differences are based on our genes, or allele, different alleles, not genes, because we've got the same genes, obviously. Now, why then does suddenly another particular feature suddenly show up? Well, it could be because there was a random mutation. So a random mutation has occurred. Okay, now you've done mutations with this, but you know, you can have these frame shifts and so on, but a random mutation has occurred. So there's been a change in the gene sequence, okay, a change to a particular base in our gene sequence. It's called a random mutation. Now, that random mutation can either be absolutely nothing at all, nothing comes of it, because remember the DNA code is degenerate. It can code, we got different codes that code for the same particular amino acid, so that can happen. So nothing happens at all. Or it could be a disadvantage. You can get cancer or something like that and it can kill you off, okay? Or by complete chance, it can be an advantage to you. it becomes what we know as an advantageous allele. And it depends on the environment, because in one environment it might be a disadvantage. So for instance, you could be in a hot environment, and this allele might make you more hairy, for instance. Now if you're in a hot environment, it might make you overheat and you can die from heat exhaustion or something. But if you're in a cold environment, it becomes an advantage to you, because you retain your warmth, okay, your heat. You reduce your heat loss, okay. It reduces your keeps you warmer for a long period, so therefore you stay warm, you don't die, okay, in the freezing cold. So it depends on where you are. Now, if you do have that advantageous allele, you're better adapted for competition in that particular environment. And we coined that phrase, survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest comes from Darwin's theory of natural selection. That's where that phrase came from, survival of the fittest. The ones that are the fittest, okay? So I'm not necessarily talking about fit as in you're really fast or you're really strong or you're really good looking as in oh you're fit, not that kind of fit. We're talking about, generally speaking, how does it make you better adapted in your environment, that you can have an advantage over your next person in your population, that you get a chance to get more food, okay? Because at the end of the day, if you're better adapted, it's what you're wanting. You want more resources. The more resources you have, the more you can grow from baby size to adult size, obviously, and obviously grow your population. So fitness, what we're after food, we're after shelter. So that might mean aggression, fighting somebody else for that particular shelter. Food, water, shelter, mates. Mates, not as in your friends, as in you're finding the opposite sex. So you find the opposite sex, it increases your success for reproduction, so you get more reproductive success, okay? You get more sexual reproduction, therefore that successful allele, if it's in the gametes, will get passed down to the next generation, so your children have it. And then if your children are successful, they will pass it on to the next generation, and so on, and so on. So over generations and generations and generations, okay, you increase in that successful allele and decreases in the non-advantageous ones. Because remember we said about the gene pool, it'll increase the allelic frequency of the advantageous one, but the successful one, but the disadvantageous one or the non-advantageous ones will decrease, and then you'll get this sort of, that increases, that decreases, that diminishes and gets wiped off, okay, because it might become extinct. So an example of that you need to know, a particular example is the peppered moth. Peppered moth was originally white. However, genetic mutation, this happened back in sort of Manchester. They had this data from Manchester during the Industrial Revolution, which happened in the 1800s, over about a 100-year period, more and more factories. So in the early 1800s, okay, you only had these sort of white peppered moths, the more lighter coloured ones, and they could survive in the countryside or even in cities back then, because the trees and the buildings and everything were more lighter in colour. Can you see that one? A bird's flying past, won't see that one, you'll see that one, that will get eaten. There weren't many black ones about, there weren't any black ones at all around in the early 1800s. And then the Industrial Revolution happened. Now, it's not that, this is a misconception. You don't suddenly go, oh look, I'm light, and suddenly the trees have gone dark because of all this pollution. I need to change myself, I'm going to get a new coat or new wings, I'm going to make my wings get dark and ashened up, right? So I can get myself camouflaged. It's not you making adaptations, it's you not changing in your life, okay? This is about the next generation. If you're not fit, right, and you won't survive, you're not going to pass on those genes to the next generation, okay? So it's what you've already got. So how does that happen? Complete chance. It's a random mutation to somebody else's genes that's given them that particular feature, okay? So in a population, remember, you've got variation. So at the beginning in the population, there were only these guys about. There weren't any of these guys around, but suddenly a random mutation, there might be one of these guys around, or two, or three, or four, something like that. Very, very low numbers. But what happens is, these guys might breed with those ones, and you might get some kind of colour slightly in between. Or you might not, because it might be this has got a dominant allele compared to that one. However, What happens is that one meet another one that's darker, and therefore they pass on the darker coloured gene to the next generation. But what happens? The bird flies past. There's competition for resources. These guys want food, but they're also competition of survival. They're trying to survive getting not eaten. A bird flies past, sees that one that gets eaten. However, environmental changes happen. Industrial revolution, smoke, smog, pumping out into the atmosphere. All the buildings become all dirty and smoggy. Okay, the trees become ashen like that. Suddenly the bird flies past. Well, I used to go and eat those. Now I'm flying past. I don't see those ones. Camouflage. The bird flies past. Oh, easy pickings. There wasn't many of those guys around anyway. There was loads of these guys around. Lots of food. We'll go and eat those. So if we go and eat those, there's a lot fewer of those around because they're getting eaten. They don't get a chance to breed and pass on their genes. These guys are surviving. Survival of the fittest because they're camouflaged. There's more of these darker ones around. They breed with the darker ones because they're still hanging about, they're still alive. They pass on their genes to the next generation. And you get an increase of the allelic frequency in that gene pool of the peppered moth, okay, the darker ones. Okay, so that is natural selection, Darwin's theory of evolution, okay, and the genetic diversity. A lot of these lessons are a lot shorter than our previous ones. There's a lot less complicated theory to go through, but make sure you're reading through your Caboodle textbook. Make sure you're doing your summary questions and your end of chapter exam questions. And remember, Miss Marta is also posting more and more stuff online for your resources to use. And also, you've got access to all the past exam papers too. So make sure you're going through those and make sure your files are up to date. If that's been useful, My Smart Learning, you've learned something about evolution today and natural selection. Please like the video, share the videos, watch the videos, subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I hope to see you next time on My Smart Learning, which will be tomorrow. We're going to be looking at different types of selection and selection pressures. But that'll be next time. See you on tomorrow's lesson and take care. Bye for now.